ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday here in Dakar and 1 p.m. in Lagos, Nigeria. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. First, our top stories. Burkina Faso bans religious leaders and suspends association for statements it says undermine peaceful coexistence. State police proposal sparks Senate debate in Nigeria as citizens complain of worsening insecurity.
This bill builds on the significant work already done by the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Is it actually a panacea to security challenges we have? No.
Sierra Leone civil society threatens nationwide protests over rising fuel prices.
Right now, as I speak to you, the cost of transportation is so high that the daily movements are really restricted.
And AES experts meet in Ouagadougou to forge common front ahead of ECOWAS consultations. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
On the news, this is a more edit.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to all of our listeners across the sub-region and beyond. Newslink begins in Burkina Faso, where the authorities have taken another drastic decision against religious associations and leaders. In its latest decision, the government has banned 2 religious leaders from preaching and suspended an association for 3 months. The authorities accuse them of making radical statements likely to undermine social cohesion and peaceful coexistence. Atewin Bila completes the story.
In separate decrees, the government prohibits Omar Sankara and Idrissa Sawadogo from carrying out any preaching, religious teaching, or any activities in Burkina Faso until further notice. Authorities accuse both men of making statements that could undermine social harmony and peaceful coexistence. The government has also suspended the religious association known as Tabernacle of the Sons of the Kingdom of the Holy Spirit for an initial period of 3 months, renewable if necessary. Officials say the organization failed to renew its governing bodies and is also facing allegations of moral misconduct and money laundering. The sanctions will be monitored by the Directorate General of Religious, Customary and Traditional Affairs and communicated to key government institutions and regional authorities. The latest action follows the suspension of 2 Islamic civil society organizations earlier this month. According to Burkinabe authorities, the decision reflects a broader effort to tighten regulation of religious activities while maintaining the secular principles enshrined in the country's constitution.
Atewin Bila with that report. Still in Burkina Faso, today marks 2 years since journalist Atiana Serge Oulon was abducted from his home by men who identified themselves as intelligence agents. Oulon was arrested on June 24, 2024, raising continuing concerns among media professionals and human rights advocates. As colleagues across Burkina Faso commemorate the anniversary of his disappearance, human rights organizations are urging the authorities to ensure his immediate release. Augustin Goli gives us the details.
Journalist Atiana Serge Oulon was arrested at his home on the early morning of June 24, 2024. Men claiming to work with the National Intelligence Agency took him to an unknown location. Since then, the 40-year-old investigative journalist has not been seen nor heard from. A few weeks later, Captain Ibrahim Traoré publicly acknowledged the arrest of a journalist without disclosing a name for allegedly spreading false information. Serge Oulon, editor of the bi-monthly newspaper The Event, notably authored an article denouncing corruption within the Burkinabe armed forces, including alleged cases of embezzlement of public funds. In an investigative report published in December 2022, he revealed a case of embezzlement involving 400 million CFA francs intended for the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, citing a captain from the Central North region, the area controlled at the time by the country's current president. Recently, Reporters Without Borders stated that Serge Oulon, along with several other adoptees, was being held in 2 ministerial villas in the upscale Ouaga 2000 district, where they were regularly subjected to torture. On the second anniversary of his disappearance, human rights NGOs, including the International Federation for Human Rights, the World Organization Against Torture, and Amnesty International issued a statement demanding the immediate release of the Burkinabe journalist.
Augustine Bilkoli with that report. Meanwhile, experts from Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are meeting in Ouagadougou to develop a common strategic framework for the Confederation of Sahel States (AES) ahead of future consultations with ECOWAS. The technical meeting focuses on aligning the positions of the three member states and identifying shared priorities as they prepare for discussions with the West African Regional Bloc. The consultations come as ECOWAS continues to engage the Central Sahelian nations, which formally withdrew from the organization on June 29, 2025, marking a significant shift in regional political and security dynamics. Usman Umar completes the story.
The goal of the meeting is to identify the strategic interest of the Confederation and ensure a coordinated approach to future discussion with ECOWAS in a context of evolving relations between the two sides. Speaking during the engagement, Burkina Faso's Foreign Ministry Secretary General Herman Toure said the process is focused on consolidating and aligning the three countries' positions while preparing their arguments for upcoming negotiation deadlines. He added that the work also seeks to defend the interest of populations within the AES space and the wider sub-region while safeguarding key achievements, including free movement of people and goods. These discussions form part of ongoing efforts by Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger to strengthen coordination within the AES and present a unified voice on major regional issues as they redefine their relationship with ECOWAS. The outcome of the meeting will be transmitted into a common position document that will guide future negotiations with the West African Bloc.
Usman Umar filed that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's cross over now to Nigeria, where debate is intensifying over a constitutional amendment bill proposed by President Bola Tinubu, which seeks to establish state police forces. The bill submitted to the Senate on Tuesday has drawn mixed reactions from lawmakers, with some senators arguing that they were not sufficiently consulted before the proposal was brought forward for consideration. This development adds a new dimension to the long-running discussion on state policing, a reform widely seen as a potential game-changer for Nigeria's security architecture amid growing concerns over nationwide insecurity. Our correspondent Yechenu Sasicho gives us the details.
The proposal seeks to provide a legal framework for states to establish and operate their own police services alongside the Nigeria Police Force. Announcing the submission during plenary, Senate President Godswill Akpabio informed lawmakers that the bill had been transmitted by the President for legislative consideration.
This bill builds on the significant work already done in this regard by the House of Representatives and the Senate and incorporates additional safeguards.
However, a former commissioner of police, Fatai Owoseni, says although state police may contribute to addressing some security challenges, it is not the overarching solution.
Is it actually a panacea to security challenges we have? No. What I'm saying is what we require is a whole state approach to policing, a whole society approach to policing. Let us see how all this will play out. But it is just a matter of let my people go. Nigerians are clamoring for this. Oh yeah, give them. Let them go and be debating about it.
The proposal has also generated reactions among Nigerians.
Yes, it's something that could be implemented, but with certain provisos, right? We don't want a situation where governors are now abusing the power that has been given to them.
I don't think state policing is the problem. I think it's not being proactive.
Some states kind of started it. You have the Amotekun, we have the Eastern, whatever, even though there are still some issues. But you can see that there are a lot of results.
The push for state police has gained momentum amid growing concerns over kidnapping, banditry, and other forms of violent crime against the country. The bill has been referred to the Senate Committee on Constitution Review and will require approval by the National Assembly and at least 2/3 of state houses of assembly before it can become law. For WADR, Yechenu Sasitu in Abuja.
Elsewhere in Ghana, a security analyst has welcomed the government's decision to revoke all existing firearm licenses and introduce stricter regulations governing gun ownership. Samuel Apia says the measures are a positive step towards enhancing public safety and strengthening oversight of firearms amid growing concerns about the misuse of legally acquired weapons in the country. As NADDT reports, all gun owners will now be required to undergo a fresh registration process.
The move, announced by Interior Minister Muntaka Mohammed Mubarak, requires all firearm holders to reapply for their licenses under a new framework that includes mandatory mental health assessment, drug screening, and firearms training. Speaking at a press briefing in Accra, the minister said the reforms were necessary to address gaps in the current licensing system and prevents the misuse of legally acquired firearms.
All permits that have been granted to any individual that you are holding a sidearm or firearm is hereby revoked. We are revoking that, and we are opening a window where everyone will have to come forward again to re-register the gun, because we've changed the procedure.
As part of the reforms, government plans to destroy more than 2,000 firearms that were either voluntarily surrendered or seized under the National Gun Amnesty Program, which has come to an end. Mr. Mubarak also disclosed that 4,038 unregistered firearms were voluntarily surrendered over to the Ghana Police Service during the amnesty exercise, which was aimed at reducing the proliferation of illicit weapons. Reacting to the development, security analyst Samuel Appiah described the government's decision as timely and necessary, arguing that stricter vetting and monitoring of firearm owners would help improve the country's security situation and reduce the risk of weapons falling into the wrong hands.
I believe it's a good move. We need to rather strengthen the processes that will go in to ensure that new systems are going to be in place, procedures are adhered to strictly, people are obliged to ensure that when you are given the license, you must use the license as it requires of you.
The Interior Ministry says modalities for the registration exercise will be announced in the coming days as part of broader efforts to strengthen firearm regulation and enhance public safety. For WDR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
Well, we do have more on this development in our guest interview segment. In the meantime, on the diplomatic front, Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has held talks with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in Berlin. Discussions centered on security challenges in the Sahel and strengthening cooperation between West Africa and its international partners. President Faye underscored the need for sustained support for countries confronting terrorism, while reaffirming Senegal's commitment to dialogue and the peaceful resolution of conflicts. The meeting comes as Senegal prepares to assume the rotating presidency of ECOWAS, a role expected to place the country at the forefront of regional diplomacy, crisis management, and efforts to promote stability across West Africa. Here is an excerpt of the Senegalese president's speech.
This
visit provides an opportunity to consolidate and inject new momentum into this partnership, including in the priority sectors of our national transformation agenda, Vision Senegal 2050. With Chancellor Merz, we discussed ways and means of strengthening our economic and trade relations through investment, while ensuring greater involvement of the private sector. German companies have an important role to play in Senegal, particularly as we value the quality of German products and services. Our discussions also cover issues of mutual interest, including the situation in the Sahel and across Africa, where both our countries remain engaged in the fight against terrorism. We are conscious that the peace and stability of our two continents are closely linked. Beyond Africa, threats to global peace and security also stem from areas of tension and extremism in the Americas, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. It is therefore necessary to work everywhere towards de-escalation, tolerance, and an end to hostilities, and to prioritize negotiated solutions to crises. For a more balanced world order, it is also important to promote more open and inclusive global governance.
Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye speaking after a meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in Berlin, Germany. We turn to Sierra Leone because civil society organizations and opposition politicians are threatening a nationwide protest over the continued rise in fuel prices. The Native Consortium and Research Center, a leading citizens advocacy group based in Freetown, has issued the government a 7-day ultimatum to address the situation. Despite a gradual decline in global crude oil prices, The group says the high cost of fuel is driving up transport fares and basic goods prices, placing increasing pressure on households and businesses in the country. Abdullah Hassan reports.
The latest demands reflects the long-standing frustration among fuel consumers and transport operators regarding fuel prices in Sierra Leone. Currently, the retail price of fuel in Sierra Leone is set at 35 leones per litre, approximately $153. However, civil society groups including consumer organizations and opposition leaders in the country are calling for a reduction in this price. Edward Comey, the deputy director of the Consumers Protection Association, voices these concerns.
Right now, as I speak to you, the cost of transportation is so high that the daily movements are really restricted. And whenever fuel is high, all commodities are really increased in prices and the like. We have to do our sensitization. We use our placards, move to government parastatals, especially Petroleum Regulatory Commission. We meet them. We talk about this thing you're doing. The consumers are not real all that suitable with them.
Government officials previously defended the current pricing structure, stating that domestic fuel prices are influenced not only by crude oil prices, but also by exchange rates, taxes, and existing stock purchased at earlier rates. Meanwhile, the Consumers Protection Association is urging the government to engage in dialogue to avoid the negative impact of the planned nationwide protests.
In some aspects, it will hamper the work of the government because the government will really going to lose. Right now, as the economy is really scattered, if you look at the inflation today, $100 really costs you over how many thousand leones. So we want to look at it this direction. Let's try and talk.
As at the time of filing this report, neither the government nor the Petroleum Regulatory Authority has responded to the civil society's demands.
Abdullah Hassan with that report. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and around the world on wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Burkina Faso bans religious leaders and suspends association for statements it says undermine peaceful coexistence. State police proposal sparks Senate debate in Nigeria. Citizens complain of worsening insecurity. AES experts meet in Ouagadougou to forge common front ahead of ECOWAS consultations. And Sierra Leone civil society threatens nationwide protests over rising fuel prices. Still ahead, we do have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
We are streaming live on wadr.org. Also follow our live streamings on YouTube and Facebook. Now to judicial matters in Guinea, where the Appeals Chamber of the Special Court for Economic and Financial Crimes has upheld Ibrahima Sherif Ba's conviction. The former governor of Guinea's central bank was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment for embezzling more than $10 million. In a ruling delivered on Tuesday, the appeals court confirmed the majority of the sanctions imposed during the first instance of the trial. Sankle Janko reports.
In its decision, the Appeals Chamber of the Special Court for Economic and Financial Crimes, CRIF, confirmed the 5-year prison sentence of Ibrahima Sherif Ba, who is also a member of the main opposition political party, the UFDJ. The CRIF found the former governor of Guinea's central bank guilty of embezzling public funds, illicit enrichment, money laundering, and abuse of office. It also ordered him to pay a fine of 5 billion Guinean francs and to repay the $10.5 million he embezzled. Additionally, Ibrahima Sherif Ba must pay 10 billion Guinean francs in damages to the state as compensation for the harm caused. The appeals chamber ordered the confiscation of all his assets for the benefit of the state and issued an arrest warrant reinforcing the legal measures already taken in the case. The verdict follows several appeal hearings during which the defense lawyers sought to overturn the original judgment.
That was a report from our Conakry correspondent Cherno Afa Ibrahim Balde and presented by Sankule Janko. In Liberia, academic activities have been disrupted in Grand Bassa County, the central region, after a heavy rainfall caused the collapse of a footbridge connecting a university campus to nearby communities. The damage has forced the immediate suspension of classes, leaving students stranded and cutting off access to the institution. The footbridge had served as a vital alternative route after the main Benson River Bridge got damaged and remained unattended for years despite repeated government assurances. The latest collapse has renewed concerns over infrastructure challenges affecting education and mobility in the area. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Ibrahim Parker reports.
Affected students are urging local and national authorities to fast-track a permanent solution to the damaged bridge connecting the university. They want that prolonged closure of the institution threatens their academic calendar and could keep them out of school for months. The university students expressed their grievances in a petition to the Grand Bassa County Administration on Tuesday.
Since the destruction of the original bridge leading to the university, students, faculties, and staff have endured years of hardship. Public assurances were given that the problem will soon be resolved. The project remains incomplete, leaving the university community to continuous operating under unsafe and difficult conditions.
Receiving their petition, Grand Bassa County Superintendent Caillou Johnson apologized for the disruption and acknowledged the delays in the bridge project.
We are appealing to you, give this government up to August. And not only that, the procurement process of the pavement of the GBU road is almost at completion. So when the bridge lands, it will not take us a very long time.
At the same time, residents across the Benson River say the situation has worsened mobility, limiting access to Buchanan and essential services. Bill Jimin is a resident of the area.
I think this is a wake-up call for every one of us, including the central government, local government, and community members, to see how we all can together face this breach. People from Painsbury cannot come to Buchanan.
The latest incident has renewed the calls for authorities to fast-track up the bridge project, which has remained incomplete despite years of commitments. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview focuses on Ghana, where the government has ordered the revocation of all existing firearm licenses and introduced stricter regulations governing gun ownership. According to authorities, the decision is in response to growing concerns about the misuse of legally acquired weapons, which have resulted in several deaths in some parts of the country. Our guest is Samuel Appiah, a security analyst, who provides an analysis of the new measure.
Even though it has taken an incident for us to recognize the kind of lapses and probably loose in the system where people have taken undue advantage on that. So I believe it's a good move. We need to rather strengthen the processes that will go in to ensure that new systems are going to be in place. Procedures are adhered to strictly. People are obliged to ensure that when you are given the license, you must use the license as it requires of you. Any breach of it should never be countenanced by the state. And so I believe that these directives rather will give a new sense of direction as to how they have to regulate the issuance of these licenses. And after that, how they will monitor. What is mind-boggling is that do people periodically surrender these weapons and also give reports? Because after you've acquired the license, every year you need to give account as to whether the weapon was used and for what purpose was it used, if it was used at all. So these are all the information and the profile that the ministry will need to have vis-a-vis the Small Arms Commission should be able to give very credible data to inform the public. So for me, I think this is in good move.
In the suspension of these licenses to individuals who have weapons, it will require them to, reapply for these licenses? Is that it?
Well, if it will not require that they reapply, then it means the directives will not be effective, because what makes it very cogent is that the people will have to be reassessed, reevaluate, and also consider whether or not they are fit to possess the license and also the weapons. So in my opinion, I think the ministry will give further directives to all those people to come forward for their licenses to be reviewed and for them personally to be assessed. And a lot of questions profiling must be done to either confirm or deny their eligibility to continue possessing those licenses and the weapons. I think it's in that sense it will be very effective.
But can it also backfire in the instance where people who hitherto had registered their licenses and then they have it suspended and they require them to reapply and they do not? Will we not have a number of people having weapons in their hands without the necessary due process being followed?
Well, I must believe that the ministry has data on all the people who have licensed their weapons, except those who have the weapons illegally, and they have not acquired the permits or license. In those cases, it means the ministry will not have any data on those people. So I share the sense that they will definitely be able to trace the number of people who have acquired license to be able to possess this weapon. So if it is suspended, it means the person who received the permit will be communicated to, and you are aware that your data, your file is available, so they'll be able to trace you if you fail to comply with the directives of the ministry. And then also they have to be very strict with those, who may have it and they don't have the required permit and authority to possess them, probably strengthening the intelligence collection system so we can profile all of these people to be able to assist them to surrender these weapons. We are talking about public safety here. So I want to believe that the ministry will take into consideration the fact that they want to look at the larger perspective of ensuring safety and security for the citizenry.
Samuel Apia is a Ghanaian security analyst who spoke earlier with our correspondent Nadide Tete. Well, in sport news, Ghana and England both edge closer to a place in the last 32 of the World Cup after a 0-0 draw in Foxborough on Tuesday evening. My colleague Sankli Janko is here in the studio with more details. Sankli.
Yes, indeed. Hello, Imo. Like you rightly said, Thomas Tuchel's side is top of Group L with 4 points above Ghana on goal difference, going into their final game against Panama, where the win will likely secure first place and 32 a tie in Atlanta on July 1. Of course, going into this game, England were in high spirit following their 4-2 victory over Croatia, but Ghana defend resolutely, and in fact they could even have a penalty because that was a penalty claim for the Black Stars, but it all ended well for the African side. Scoreless draw for Ghana.
Indeed. Well, the RC and the Colombia had also their own game in Group K. Unfortunately, it didn't end well for the RC. Tell us about that.
It didn't, because it was a hard-fought win for Colombia, which took a major step toward the knockout stage at the 2026 FIFA World Cup after securing a 1-0 victory over DR Congo in Guadalajara. That is that game between DR Congo and Colombia.
All right, we do have fixtures for today, Sankuli.
Yes, indeed, we do. Certainly, Imo, coming up at 7 p.m. this evening, Switzerland will face Canada, one of the host countries in the tense Group B match, while Bosnia and Herzegovina clash with Qatar in the same group. And later, meanwhile, at 10 p.m. tonight, Morocco, who are closer to booking a place in the next round with 4 points, will meet Haiti, who are also at the bottom of Group C with 0 points at 10 p.m. Another Group B match will also feature Scotland against Brazil. At the same time, both Brazil and Morocco have 4 points, followed by Scotland with 3 points. We are looking forward to perhaps another...
That should be a walkover for Morocco.
I wouldn't say a walkover or a walk in the park, because football you can never tell. But I'm assuming we are hopeful that Morocco will get a positive result and secure their qualification to the next round.
Indeed. Sankli, thank you for Sport News. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. And many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maudoju for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, at WADR English. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a repeat broadcast of 50/50. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. in the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Graft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.